Welcome, 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 and thank you for joining us on another episode of today's Electrical Estimating. I'm your co-host, Chris Strommer, and as always, I'm joined by industry veteran, Sal Huerta.
Hello.
So, Sal, we got Derek back with us today, and the conversation is going to be focused around markup, and I think to go along with that, job costing. And he does a great job. He really breaks out how utilizing their EBM software allows you to sort of export that side of the bid, import it with QuickBooks through a module. And he gets into this, so I might be a little off, but he will go into detail about it. But then I'll let you go back and look by phase and understand, how close you were from actual project costs to your bid costs, and to understand maybe where you're coming up short to where you're bringing in a lot of profit so that you can adjust your markups on future jobs, which, as he points out, is usually done by larger contractors, but maybe not so much on the smaller contractor side that's wearing 2 or 3 or 4 different hats.
Pretty common that it happens, like you just mentioned. The small to medium range guy, does the bid, gets the job, and now him and his crew are out there for the next 6 months. And so the job costing part of the business kind of just sits there in a storage place somewhere, so to speak. But that's the engineering side of all of these programs. We talked a little bit about the estimating programs in the past where people think it's a point and click and it just kind of does all this kind of stuff for you. But the engineering side of it comes into where, like you said, you're looking at the different phases of the job. Which did you do well? Which you didn't do well? Which can you actually, do better at? And being able to break down these phases and then look at them individually for the job costing part of it, that allows you to make those decisions or better decisions in the future.
All right. Well, with that, let's just jump into it. Let Derek do the breakdown because he explains it so well. Hopefully some people pick up some insights. And if this is your first time joining us, please like and subscribe. We're going to be dropping new episodes every Friday for you on a wide range of topics that deal within this electrical estimating space. So, Sal, as always, great speaking with you.
Thank you. Good talking to you as well.
Catch up with you next week. Take care, everybody. Markup strategies are critical for project success. How can electrical estimators determine the most appropriate markup percentage for different type of projects? Does Vision software help with estimators streamline this process and ensure their markups align with project requirements?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. It's something that we find not enough of our customers take the time to do.
Mm-hmm.
There's always those elements of running a business where you think, yeah, we need to be doing that. Are we doing it? No, we're not doing it. And it's that thing that probably keeps the owners up at night sometimes when they have that list of things that if only they could do, they know it would help their business. But job costing is one of them. We find fewer, especially on the smaller side companies, do it. So if you're not doing it, don't feel terrible because you're not alone. But there's advantages to it, even just dipping your toe into it a bit. And I think dipping your toe into it a little bit is taking the expenses for at least one of your jobs. Maybe start small and just comparing the total expenses to your bid, to the bid expense, and see how far off you are. And if you find you lost your shirt or you didn't make enough or whatever, you can make adjustments for your next jobs. And of course, that's going to be a little different depending on how big the jobs are. Like if it's a $25,000 job compared to a $250,000 or $2.5 million, you're going to kind of have to group those job costing numbers together in that way. Oftentimes, it's your accounting software that has the job costing system. EBM creates the bid data, which creates the base of what you, of course, are expecting the
project
cost to be. Yeah, the project cost to be. And as an estimator, you want to understand what the actual costs were so that you can make sure that your bids are profitable. Like, sure, you're winning a lot of jobs, but why are you winning a lot of jobs? It's because...
Are you losing money every single time you're winning a job because you're coming in in a terrible position and it's just not working out for you.
Right. Yeah, which could be a scary thing because you wanna keep your team busy,
Yeah.
and the idea of increasing your margins and not winning as many jobs, I mean, it's a risk, but that's business.
Yeah.
That's easy, it's so that's primarily what EBM brings to the table is, of course, you have the ability to export out the costs of your job, and you can see I guess the primary advantage is all of our items in Electrical Bid Manager are phased, which groups them into categories, which is it's sort of like, what would you call it? Like the start of the job towards the end of the job. So you've got like the sorry, I'm trying to remember what those phases are.
It's
It got
sort of
like
like
the
my okay.
underground feeder raceway, the above ground branch, the feeder wire, branch wire, switchgear, lighting, etc. Everything's kind of grouped together, and then you could see the subtotals for each of those. So you should be gathering that data from the field and in those same phases.
Mhm.
That way you can compare your costs per phase and so, get down to the point where you're able to identify certain areas of your bid that are the problem.
Got
Ra
it.
rather than if but there's nothing wrong with this at the start at least. Well, don't I'm not an expert there, so don't
We
or an
won't
account
we won't quote you. We'll unquote
right.
that
Well, I
piece.
guess you are. But if you take the whole job total, it can be okay for a little bit because you can kind of Band-Aid fix things just by bumping your margin up a little
Yeah.
bit to kinda
Well, you
cover
don't really
yourself.
understand because you're looking at a big number. If you're looking at 2.5 million and you're coming in and you're like, well, it's not as what we were expecting in profit. You don't really get the breakdown and able to understand what areas, like you said, it could have been phase one where you lost
Right.
so much there. The rest of it all worked out well for you. But if you don't know it was phase one, you're just thinking, well, just bump the margin up across the board, which then might put you out of space for the next bids because you're coming in a little bit too high without understanding the real issue. Is that sort of what you're going for with that?
Yeah, exactly, and if you're bidding $2.5 million jobs, you better be job costing already.
Yeah. But no, I like the way that you put it there that even if, you're a smaller guy, maybe you're not doing this because you're wearing multiple hats as we talked
Yeah,
about before, but it is going to be something important to start at any point. And even if just taking one of them that you just did and as you said, export it out of your program,
yep,
connect with the field or whatever materials you
mhm,
have for when the project was going on to the accounting at the end, putting it all together and really just breaking down and figuring out the cost. I mean, maybe you
right.
made out like a bandit and you're throwing a parade and you're great, but even that's good to know. It doesn't have to necessarily be, oh god, I lost, I look at how much money I lost, but hey, I did great here, how did I do so good, so for the future.
Right, and there's many advantages to knowing that because once you know, like you said, "Hey, I did great," it's like, "Well, why did I do great? Where did I do great?" "Oh, I did great in, I don't know, the" yeah, above ground branch or something, I
Yeah.
don't know. So okay, then when I'm in a more competitive situation and I know there's 5 or 6 or more other companies bidding on the same job, maybe I get a little tighter in that area to make sure I win that job because I really want it.
Yeah.
But if I don't really want it, who cares? I'm gonna leave that advantage there and, maybe they'll give it to me for other reasons. Maybe I won't be the low bidder, but oh well. It's
Yeah,
not my
but
goal.
overall, it's just giving you a better understanding of your business. Like you said, if you're getting to that size, you need to understand your job costs. You need to understand your markups. You got to understand what happened where so that you know your business from top to bottom and where you can make adjustments moving forwards.
Right. Yes. So we do have a job costing module, currently only works with QuickBooks, but it's
Mhm.
not much to a job costing export that there's like 8 to 12, and there might be more phases depending on your job. You might only have like 6 phases. They're just 6 numbers really that you need to plug into your job cost system. I might be oversimplifying that, but it's not
Mhm.
that much work. The hard part
Yeah.
really comes in after you win the job, after your bid is accepted and you win, then tracking all of your expenses back to that job and
Mhm.
potentially back to those phases is where there's other work to be done. Typically, I believe by the project manager.
Okay.
And there's tools for that. We have a sister company called Mobile Punch that's really good with tracking labor, and you can track labor against phases. So when you clock in that day and you start your work, you can tell it what phase you're working on that day because you should know. And if you don't, then that's someone else's, that like your project manager should have known that and told you what phase you're working on today. But or just the fact you're working on that job goes back to at least you're keeping track of the expenses against that job. There's other tools out there, but I've seen Mobile Punch and it's pretty good.
And the great thing about this is in the link for this whole episode is going to be a link to your 5 best markup strategies for electrical estimators, which you guys did a while back. So, we had the conversation here, but if they are interested in what we are talking about now and want to hear a little bit more, they can always go down there, click the link and jump over to you guys and learn how they can maximize their profit using some insights that you guys are providing there.